At this point, the escalation is inevitable. And as Russia is rapidly runs out of soldiers in Ukraine, Putin is ready to lose even more in order to achieve his delusional dreams and not to call himself a loser. And even though the earliest potential date for the Ukrainian counteroffensive is only in 12 days, Ukrainians already started retaking some parts of its land around Bakhmut. But more about all of this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and see some most recent footage, and as always, we begin with some ridiculous one. So, we have this main propagandist guy in Russia, Vladimir Solovyov, and he is allegedly using the radio transmission to basically ask all the Ukrainian soldiers to either surrender because Russians are coming, or if they want to help Russia change their own country. I don't know how it works in his mind, but this is what he said. He said that Ukrainians should join Russians, march towards Kiev to overthrow this group of Nazistic, sadistic, satanistic drug addicts, which is headed by Zelensky. But according to some internet experts, the radio that he is using has only the maximum range of 15 kilometers. So I think not too many Ukrainians heard his message. Now let's get back to a little bit more serious news, which are still infused with the Russian propaganda. And long story short, in this video we can see Putin allegedly visiting a military headquarters of the Russian army located in Kherson region. And the purpose of this visit was for Vladimir Putin to speak with the Russian military commandment of that area. And to be honest, this is how I personally imagine it happened. So Vladimir Putin was like, so, tell me please, how's everything in this area? How do you call it, by the way? Kherson? Kherson, yeah? How's it in Kherson, okay? Don't worry, Vladimir Vladimirovich, everything is so good, we are winning, Ukrainians are surrendering, Russia is powerful, everyone wants to become Russians, everything is good. Okay then, thank you so much for your service, I'm going to leave. No, cut it. Stop it, stop filming, we are doing horrible. Just let Vladimir Putin do not know that we are so bad. Another interesting part of the video is that technically this visit of Putin was allegedly unplanned and unscheduled, even though during this video he is saying here comes the Easter, but to be honest Easter already passed like 3 days ago, so yeah, this video was not pre-recorded. And ultimately, during the times whenever Putin was walking outside, some locals were able to recognize these places, and even though yes, he was technically in Kherson, in reality he was so far from the Ukrainian front lines that not even the long-range missiles were able to reach him. And yes, the entire video of his visit you can find on my Patreon, the link will be down below. But then we have another president visiting Ukraine, and this time it was Vladimir Zelensky who visited his soldiers on Avdiivka front line. He met with the regular people and soldiers, he was giving them a motivational speech and awarding some medals. And besides Avdiivka, many other Ukrainian authorities, including President Zelensky, were also visiting Bakhmut. And as you can see from these infographics, it shows you which Ukrainian authorities and leadership was visiting this city and at which frequency. If you also think that Ukrainian visits are more genuine and real, with Ukrainian authorities meeting with the actual real people, and not just like generals which pass the security clearance, or maybe some paid actors, can you just please like this video and subscribe to my channel to see how many of us are right here. You can also check my Instagram, because recently I've made a couple of posts there. The links will be down below. While Putin is trying to picture himself as an effective wartime leader and pretty much retain the favor among the regular civilians, in reality I personally think that his true purpose is completely the opposite. Just think about it. If you're about to say or do something bad, before doing this bad thing, you would want to do something good, to reduce the negative impact and perception of this upcoming bad thing. Yeah, I know this might sound confusing, but right now everything will be clear. And so what I'm talking about here is that most likely Putin is preparing the second wave of mobilization, which might even be bigger than the first one. And all these visits and positive statements that Russia is the greatest, sanctions are not working and we're actually winning in Ukraine is just the preparation for regular Russian citizens for whatever is coming next. So, you might already know that Putin signed a law which allows the Russian Ministry of Defense to send electronically notifications to the military summons. And so, the main Justice Department of Russia recently made a statement that, okay, even though we will be now probably sending these electronic notifications, but do not worry, the actual military summons will never be sent electronically. Just yet. Then we have the statement by the representative of the military enlistment offices in Moscow, Maxim Loktev, and he said that all of these new fresh conscripts which will be enlisted in the Russian army in spring will not be sent into the zone of this special military operation. And I mean, do you remember the general rule of thumb? Whenever Russian authorities say something, just consider that in the near future it will happen completely opposite thing. Then Maxim Loktev proceeds by saying that all these spring conscripts, 88% of them will be sent to the west of Russia to do their military training, which is suspiciously close to the borders with Ukraine. 11% will be put to the south of Ukraine, where it's also Azov Sea and all these areas, and only 1% will remain approximately somewhere in the center. And ultimately he mentions that the Ministry of Defense of Russia will be using the security cameras footage in order to track those people who avoid the draft and to try and establish their real address and not the one which is on file, which will make dodging the draft even more complicated. Then we have another representative of the Russian government, Alexander Borodai, who is saying that the outcome of this special military operation could be clear in 1.5 to 2 months. And he said that Russia must prepare to do everything to make this outcome positive. And among such things he mentioned to make the positive outcome is the possibility to do the second wave of mobilization, because Russia needs to win as fast as possible. And according to him, this second wave of mobilization should be announced as soon as possible, because Ukrainian counteroffensive is coming within just weeks. But then, according to another representative of the Russian government, who will never go to the war or will send his kids to the war, obviously, and this guy, Mikhail Sheremet, he said that instead of a partial mobilization, they should do a pretty much country-wide mobilization. And most likely they make all these statements just to satisfy Putin. Because in the end it will be Putin like, oh, so it is you who want to do the second part, partial mobilization. Well, I'm kinda okay with not doing, but if you really want to do it, I guess, yeah, let's go ahead and call more conscripts and send them to Ukraine. So that once again Putin can divert the blame from himself. And the best confirmation that the next round of mobilization is coming sooner or later in one way or another is that the Russian authorities once again intensified their denial about this upcoming mobilization. And who I'm talking about here is the press secretary of Russia, Dmitry Peskov, who at first said, don't worry, there is not going to be any mobilization to send people to Ukraine. And then in September we had the first round of partial mobilization. Later on he said, don't worry, military summons will never be issued electronically. And so, as you can see, 1 week ago Putin signed an order that these notifications can be sent electronically. And now what he is saying, don't worry, we are not going to have the second round of mobilization. Well, you already see where this is going. And obviously the main reason for this mobilization will be just not to let Russia lose, because Ukrainian counteroffensive is coming, it will be fast, rapid and crushing. And so Russians need to at least hold their positions, such as for example in Bakhmut. According to the report by the Institute for the Study of War, Russian elite forces suffered such significant losses that right now they're literally putting fresh conscripts along with the elite professionals with decades of experience. All of this is just once again at least hold what they already captured inside this city. And well, even the Russian propaganda itself started changing the narrative towards the potential upcoming mobilization. And for example, in one of the recent these clown ship shows, they said that the West, and especially Ukraine, always misses the most important thing about Russia, is that for us there is no such thing as many losses. We can lose as many people as we want or as we can, but all the goals will always be accomplished. And so yes, even according to the Western sources, Putin knows about the upcoming Ukrainian counteroffensive. That is why he is prepared to use everything, whatever he got left, including either partial or maybe even the country-wide mobilization. Right, now just a couple more words about the Western military support and that Ukraine recently received the life-changing air defense systems, and then we'll talk about the situation in the south and the east of Ukraine. In this first video, we can see another batch of Ukrainian soldiers which have just finalized their training in Sweden. Next we have a picture by the Ministry of Defense of the United Kingdom, which says since Ukrainians finalized their training on Challenger 2 tanks, the country will now provide 14 of these machines to Ukraine. And just in general, talking about the Ukrainians preparing for their 100% upcoming counteroffensive, here is just a part of a 13-minute documentary about how they pretty much do it. And if you want to see the full version, I uploaded it completely for free on my Patreon. The link will be down below. Next we have a picture from Denmark. And according to the Ministry of Defense of this country, Ukrainians have finalized training on self-propelled artillery systems called Caesar, and now Denmark is pledging 19 of them to Ukraine. And in addition to that, Denmark also reports that its Leopard 1 tanks are almost ready to be sent to Ukraine. Then we have a video of some Polish PT-91 Twardy tanks, which Ukrainians are currently using on their military training grounds. And then according to the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, Alexei Reznikov, the first batch of 14 French wheeled tanks AMX-10 already arrived to Ukraine, and the total number of 40 is expected in the near future. But wait, there is more, because in this video we can see the American helicopter Sikorsky UH-60A, which Ukrainians also use. And speaking about the aerial vehicles, according to the Ministry of Defense of Germany, the country already delivered its air defense systems Patriot to Ukraine, which to be honest is a life-changing equipment. Because in addition to providing the possibility for this system to intercept ballistic missiles, which previously Ukraine was not able to do, the range of Patriot is estimated to be at approximately 150 kilometers, which is almost 100 miles. And as you can see from this map, this air defense system will be able to provide the air coverage for pretty much the entire Donetsk and Luhansk region. It will be able to reach Russian air bases located to the north of Ukraine, and also, yes, you got it right, Ukrainians will now also be able to target Russian aerial vehicles in Crimea. Right, and now as promised, let's talk about the situation in the east and the south of Ukraine, and then we'll talk about Ukrainians retaking some already of its positions around Bakhmut. But first of all, as you can see from this picture, unfortunately, recently Russians targeted a civilian marketplace located in Kherson city, and there are civilian casualties. Next, we have the statement by Natalia Gumenyuk, and she is saying that according to her intelligence, Russians are heavily mining the left side of Dnipro river, and at the same time, suspiciously enough, they are collecting the civilian clothes, which, to be honest, according to her, it looks like that Russians, in case the Ukrainian counteroffensive in the south will be swift and brutal, they are preparing another gesture of goodwill in Kherson region. And something similar is happening right now in the Zaporozhye region as well, to the north of Melitopol, where according to the Ukrainian intelligence, Russians are driving through Vasilievka all the way to Tokmak and using the loudspeakers, announcing to the local residents that they need to evacuate as soon as possible. Russians are also heavily fortifying their positions in Zaporozhye as well, and also planting mines, which kinda allows you to assume where the Russian forces expect the Ukrainian counteroffensive the most. And before I talk about the east of Ukraine, right here we have a pretty intriguing news which came to us deep from the inside of Russia, from Tyumen region. And as you can see from this video, there has been a huge fire, most likely in one of its oil refineries. But according to the Russian propaganda and media, don't worry, nothing significant happened, somebody was just not very careful with the sticks and matches. Alright, now let's go back to the east of Ukraine. And first of all, according to the report presented to us by the Institute for the Study of War, Russians intensified their offensive to the east of Kupiansk and also to the south of Kreminna. But in the last 24 hours, there was no progress at all. Our next stop brings us to the most significant fighting area in the east of Ukraine, the city of Bakhmut, and as you can see from this map, this is how the front lines have been changing in the last 24 hours. As you can see, the progress of Russians is minimal while still suffering hundreds of losses. But on the other hand, Ukrainians were a little bit more successful, and first of all, using the artillery fire, they were able to destroy a Russian military base located to the east of Bakhmut, and most likely this is where a lot of reinforcements were coming from. In addition to that, we have another case of Ukrainians successfully using artillery, and they were able to destroy a munition depot in Klishivka, which is located to the south of Bakhmut. And speaking about Klishivka, according to the Ukrainian sources, they were able to liberate pretty significant territories to the west of this settlement, which is still not yet reflected by this map, but we'll see it tomorrow. So as you can see, even though Ukrainian counteroffensive has not yet officially started, Ukrainians are already showing the initiative at liberating some of its land, especially including in the hottest areas such as around Bakhmut. And by the way, recently Russians stopped claiming that they fully captured Bakhmut, as they used to do in the past, because in reality Bakhmut still stands. And as you can see from this video, presented by us to once again one of Ukrainian soldiers fighting inside this city, they're not planning to leave it anytime soon. But then we have some very interesting reports from the Russian side, and allegedly Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of Wagner, regained some trust between him and Putin. And the reason for this is that whenever Ministry of Defense of Russia said to Putin, "We don't need Wagner, we're capable ourselves at capturing this city." And well, as you can see in the last month, there was almost no progress at all. So Putin was like, okay, you cannot do it, we're only successful when Wagner was doing it, so let's be friends again, but don't you dare be ambitious. This has also been indirectly confirmed by the British intelligence, which claims that Russian conventional army along with Wagner forces, they're making insignificant, or how they call them, creeping advances inside Bakhmut, definitely not worth the cost, and in order to maintain this offensive, they completely stopped their offensive operations around Avdiivka and Donetsk front line to send these soldiers all the way from the south all the way to Bakhmut city. And speaking about the southeast of Ukraine, Ukrainians were also able to report that they destroyed several Russian armored vehicles next to Pavlivka. And just in general, in the last 24 hours alone, Ukrainians were able to report that they successfully destroyed 1 Russian tank, 11 armored vehicles, and 6 artillery systems. All of this in just the east of Ukraine. And ultimately, we have this video from another completely destroyed city in Ukraine called Marinka, and as you can see, a Russian tank is trying to advance between the city ruins, trying to find the target, I assume, and then it has been attacked several times by Ukrainian drones. And most likely, this one tank that Ukrainians claim that they were able to destroy was this particular tank. And as always, you can find the entire full and uncensored version of this video on my Patreon. The link will be down below, and there's still 1 week of free access. And so yes, to sum it all up, according to the White House, the next weeks and months will be critical to Ukraine, and they will do everything possible to help this country to win in this war. But it will not be just critical for Ukraine, it will be the same for Russia, and that is why, most likely, we see this increase in the intensity of reports inside Russian media, that most likely another round of mobilization is coming, and then Putin is ready to sacrifice everything he got left in order at least not to acknowledge that he has lost. And if you want to witness the defeat of Putin in real time, just please subscribe to my channel, it only takes 1 click. The best way to support my work is through my Patreon, or you can unlock exclusive channel badges by becoming my channel member, or just use a PayPal link. Everything can be found to the right and down below. Thank you so much for attention, товарищи, and see you tomorrow.